And so are you working on a proposal? We're going to propose that. Okay, excellent. And he actually communicates with you?
Yeah, I mean, this night, he's on sabbatical.
I know, but
yeah, so
good. Yeah, good. So engaged.
yeah.
Welcome. Good. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Did you lose the sound?
No, there is no sound at this moment because there's without music.
Ah, got it.
Is it just on? No, just
Okay.
just standing around and playing and doing something like that.
Got
So
it.
there are some.
You have people watching you online. Very nice.
I published the link on Facebook. At the one of them, there should be one professor from America.
Oh, wonderful.
Is involved. It's going into the institution of the director of the board audience reconciliation.
Okay.
And he was making some searches of the constitution. Japan, Taiwan, especially. And this.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. And what university is he at here in the United States? Oh, at AU in Washington. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. You said, I thought you said an American university. I missed that. No, it was an American university.
It's also quite similar.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Need to put them in.
Okay, so we'll wait a few more minutes.
Okay.
No.
Hello, Father. Oh, Father David.
Father Brad. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, yes. They also publish in Poland?
Yeah. From the Western Dominican provinces. So I got to know a lot of the Polish folks. From Dominican folks.
I know that some of them, they are also studying the Columbus, especially.
I don't live with any right now. I live actually so down Ridge Park, so not here across the street.
No.
Student here, I'm a student. So. Yeah.
It's always, but there's very specific image types.
Yeah, yeah.
Those movies that are displayed right now, they have been taken in 2017 year during my first visit in Rwanda, when I visited with the group of academical society for missions, which is very old Polish, especially from Poznań, society that gathers students, university students who are involved in the missionary movement, and they are working for the missions. At this moment, the Polish especially in Poznań. It is the center of this, the biggest movement of students, university students who are involved in missionary works. And this movie shows us how one of the 2 schools for blind children in Rwanda. It is very interesting that in society of Rwanda, there is still problems with acceptance of the disabled children. So in this school, they can develop their talents. And I'm not sure if it is heard very well, but I'd like to present it much more louder. I think it's fixed with this system of the okay.
On the podium screen. Okay. Volume. Oh. I believe it's maxed out.
Okay. And now I think we lost the voice.
Nope, now now we have nothing. If I reverse what I did, nope. Huh. Right. See if I can snag Andrew. What? Yes. Okay.
Probably. I'm sorry.
Now it works. So you also can see the albino children because of the some old beliefs in African culture. Their skin and their parts of the body are very important, and sometimes albino children are kidnapped. And because some of people believe that the parts of the albino body, it has magical improvements. And you can see the Natalia Mukazimpaka, who is the one of the visionaries of the Our Lady of Kibeho. And she runs this small choir. It is one of the choirs of the sanctuary of Kibeho. It is.
So may I give you a short introduction,
Okay.
Father, and then you can go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm John Grabowski from the Moral Theology Ethics area. It is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome Father Dr. David Skelmock from Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan, Poland. Father has his PhD from that university and has an appointment on the faculty of that university. What he's presenting to us today is his habilitation research, essentially. But he has wide-ranging theological interests, both in the theology of reconciliation more generally, peace building, but also popular culture. And he could tell us a great deal about some of the theological depth in contemporary comics and graphic novels. And he even knows what the distinction between those two things are, something that is way beyond me and my canon. So Father's going to present to us for about 45 or 50 minutes, and then he's free to do some questions, Q&A with us. And then we have very simple life refreshments afterwards. So thank you all for coming, and please join me in welcoming Father Bawi-ucząc.
Thank you very much, Professor Grabowski. It is a great privilege to be here with you and present my project, which is called Rwanda 25 Years of Reconciliation. Honestly, I do this for the first time in public because I've got the complete results of my researches on 17th of January this year. So they still don't have it in 1 month. But when we corresponded before with Professor Grabowski, so also we realized that it will be good opportunity to talk a little about this project, especially that I devoted for this in my life this 4.5 years. And why Rwanda and why it is so important in this issue? Well, I'd like to speak about the road to these researches, then about methodology and the results, of course. At the first moment in my life, when I started to prepare my doctoral dissertation, I was interested in the Polish reconciliation context, especially with this picture. You can see how the changes, political and social changes happened in 1989, which was also called as a festival of Solidarność, of solidarity. But during years, for the public opinion, we get known that it was not exactly a natural change of the political government in Poland, but it was more like an agreement, but without reconciliation. And here we can see how it was designed. Well, it's quite controversial photo because shows the Lech Wałęsa who is drinking vodka with the communist officials. So, as you see, there is no black and white reality. And it was some kind of political agreement with some requirements. When this shifting of the policy in Poland happened. At this moment, this honorable older man, Lech Wałęsa, is still very honored as a former president, but it put some shades on his almost crystal face. Well, how we can say it, but it showed me also another thing, that how it was with the church. And my first attempt to the PhD was to reconciliate those priests who were involved in collaboration with the communist system. Especially that there were some people, and even some quite of the ecclesiastical environment was created, who really wanted to help those priests who were involved in this problem. But I very fast realized, and some people from the church also helped me with this, that we are not very prepared for this moment, because a lot of those people, they are still living, and maybe it's better to wait 1 or 2 decades. But it's quite hard for me, but I have to decide that, yes, so there is no other option, I have to do it. What was another important thing?
You have some people in your waiting room who want to view you online.
Okay, so possibly. Yes, it is like that when you try to manage with all the things right now. But
these are participants from Poland, probably.
yes, they are from Poland.
I figured you thought it was important.
Yes, it is true. Yes, and I don't know where they are exactly. Okay.
There's a button there.
I don't know where is exactly
Yeah, I'm sorry,
this.
blue button. near the top of the middle of the screen. I can have no idea what the word is. The fucking Zoom looks the same. in every
So that blue button.
But I don't see this here.
Ah,
This is the problem.
Can you help them switch the screen to the computer?
on the main screen?
So it's not on screen.
Yeah, there's not on the screen. This is the problem. Yes, there is no on the screen.
So he does have people online there, but.
There are some. Oh, okay. Yes.
Ale jak coś działało, zaczął to przestało działać.
Yeah, it looks that we are home. Yeah, it happened for me before. So thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Well, now it doesn't need to be minimalized. How stubborn it is.
No. To wyjedziemy tutaj mało, to nie będzie. Może to pokrótce do obok, prawda?
Głos. Ten, kto ma 11 lat 5G.
Ono by mogło być ewentualnie w tym miejscu, wiecie?
Jest.
A ten, która fajną rzecz, że to postawić tu, jak się wchodzi, to się widzi mebelek, a nie, wiesz, a za ścianą tu można ukryć już za to pięknie.
Okay.
Postawię tak jak tu. Postawię przesunę tylko do ściany, tak nie będzie.
Okay, now it's better. And okay. So another point. So how was with this? When it was the one point, the history of the non-finished reconciliation in Poland. Another reason was the first media genocide that was worldwide known in '94 year. And in this year, I was 16-year-old, and I watched this through the television. So that's why I also realized that it was important. I also see this, and it really had big improvement for my life. Oh, there's a problem that I have split screens, and I cannot manage right now with this. Okay, and another reason was that in 2017 I was with a group of the students in Rwanda, and it was a typical youth voluntary project. As the main reason, it was to help one family of tribe of Bat-kwa, who are the smallest tribe in the whole Rwanda. And we wanted to help one family, one lady whose husband was in the prison, and she had 3 small children. And we wanted to help her to build a house. Here you can see that we are standing in the small house, and this lady is here in the middle of group. And what was very important, she was renting 1 room in the small house, and she was living here without electricity, of course, without water, things like that. She was just lying with children on the soil, and it's quite normal. Especially, she was paying a wage of $5 per month for renting this room. So we tried to help her because she was without any salary. She had to earn somehow for her 3 children. So we decided that we can support her in giving her a place for living, a small piece of ground, of land, and then she can survive somehow. Of course, it wasn't our idea, but it was the idea of the Pallottines missionaries who were working at the sanctuary of Kibeho. And what was also very interesting, during going there, I was thinking about starting to research some, because I just started working at the university, to do some researches over the subject of reconciliation. And this group of young students, they really helped me, because during this first time being there, I tried to build some kind of network of trusting and helping to those people, especially, you know, when people from the West, Americans, Europeans, we are coming to Africa, very often we are treated as those who are coming as post-colonials. And since the beginning, from the beginning, they don't trust us. And especially if I wanted to ask them, interview them about the reconciliation, so I had to get the trust. Of course, I wanted also to help them, but also it was very important to be there, to build the network of being together and to collaborate somehow for future years. So it was the main reason of being there with the students. So it was the group, and on the second plan, there is in the bottom there is a house built at the half of the walls, and there is a group of the students, and with the young candidate to the Order of Saint Joseph. So we spent there 3 months. But what was very important also for me, that when I realized that the students, they have different point of observation of Rwandans, because I always was looking and try to see them, accept them just as they were. But what was very important that they realized that, for instance, the Rwandans are a very specific part of their character, that when they meet somebody who is not, when they meet somebody who for the first time, then they try to know everything about him or her, but almost don't know anything about himself or herself. It is very interesting part of character. Some of the missionaries are saying that they are natural born diplomats. And it was very interesting because it shows that getting the trust amongst them, it will take quite a long time. So those students, they really helped me in observation of being there and of the behavior of the Rwandans. Afterwards, year after, we also tried to help them, especially with the food supplies. And there are some pictures at this moment with what are the specific pictures are typical for the Rwandan society. And for instance, you can see the bicycle taxi. Maybe sometimes you can see this, but it is also the point of prestige in Rwanda, because those bicycles, the bicycles taxi, they are forbidden in capital. And when you try to get to the capital, to Kigali, you cannot go on this bicycle taxi. You can hire this in different places, in villages, cities outside the Kigali, but they are not allowed to be shown in the capital. One course on this taxi cost $50. So this is the idea of this. Where Rwandans do live? Do they live in the village or in the city? And it's a quite normal picture. We can see that people are standing and waiting in line and with the baskets, how it could, okay. And they are trying to get the water, but how do you value? It is the city or is the village? How do you think? It looks like a village, yeah, of course. But it is the one of the part of the capital city of Kigali. So I'm showing you not to, well, to show you this society and showing that they are living in very poor conditions, not because of this, but I want to show you that sometimes they even personally don't know if they are living in the city or they are living in the village. Especially that, that when the government decides that since one day the village becomes a city. And the requirements, for instance, for the buildings are different in the cities, because when you try to build a new building, you cannot stop only on the one floor. You have to build building minimum with 2 floors. So I'm showing you this because in this in my survey there was one question about this: where do you live, in the city or in the village? Beautiful country called as a Switzerland of the Africa. We are in the middle of the valley, where very often there is a water. And what it also tells us, that it's a very good soil, very fruitful. And German scientists, they when they researched those areas, they found that only those valleys can feed 18 million of people in Rwanda. So this is really quite a rich country in future producing of the food. How big is this country? It's something about the 200,000 square kilometers. So for this conditions of this country, it is 2/3 of the Maryland land area. So this, it's smaller than Maryland state. And at this moment lives there 13 million people. So they are completely crowded, gathered in the small area. And when you drive through the village, there are groups of the people who are walking together, and it's almost impossible in Rwanda to be alone. To be like Ronaldo, because he's handing in his hands a ball, and he was then posing like a Ronaldo with the leg on the ball. He has the ball that was made by one of the fathers who were working during the building the house, and it is made of the dried leaves of the banana tree. I also see on my eyes how it was done. This is the ball, the same ball that is prepared for sale in the so-called shop. It costs something about $2. And especially when I show this to the children in Poland, they are really shocked, because for $2, they could also buy a ball, normal ball, hand ball in Polish shop. What else is very interesting about the genius of those people? Those sandals are also used by the people. But if you look at this very carefully, you can see that is used car tire. So this is the really zero waste culture. So please, you can watch this and pass it further. So I'm showing you this because it will help us to keep the frame in which conditions those people live. They would like to be more living in civilized conditions, but they are living there where they are living. And in their history happened something like a genocide that it took between 800,000 till 1 million people in 100 days. Of course, as I mentioned, there is impossible to be alone. And speaking about the reconciliation in Rwanda is treated like a political issue. This is the print screen of my conversation with one of the candidates to making the questionnaires, to fulfilling the questionnaires. As you can see, he is asking about the permission of the government. And it was in last year, this conversation with him. Of course, there is no details who this person is. And he's asking about the permission. Especially in the lower part, you can see, otherwise working without permission of the government, especially in Rwanda, is not allowed. So it shows that working on the subject of reconciliation is restricted only for government. And it became the part of the official policy of government of Rwanda as a part of building a new picture of country outside the borders, as a creating new Rwanda idea. So that's why people are quite frightened to speak about this. Why? Because officially, the government says that that reconciliation is done. One of these issues of this reconciliation is that we are no longer using the names of the Hutu and Tutsi. At this moment, all we are just Rwandans. And from the official side, everything is well done and finished. Only once in a year, on the 6th of April, on the anniversary of the starting the genocide, there is always a big national gathering. And during this gathering, in the front and the presence of the president of country, there are some meetings, there are some people who are giving testimonies, and they are using the names of Tutsi and Hutu. But for me, it was impossible to ask people from which tribe they are, because it was forbidden. So it was the one of another problems with these researches. How it started with methodology. I prepared a preliminary survey with open questions. Because I wanted, it is one of the pages of this survey. I wanted to let the Rwandans to use by them their own specific sentences, names, phrases. How do they see some concepts that they are very clear for us in America, in Europe, or even in Asia, but they have right to see something in different way. So, of course, it created a lot of work afterwards, but I wanted to know, how do they see this? How do they name some things, some terms, and how do they would like to be named and questioned in the future? So, after making this survey, I started working with a group of students, and we tried to analyze this and especially try to put in the right order. And sometimes on one question, we had 40 answers. So we had to use it and try to join the meanings of those ideas, because we wanted in the main survey, we wanted to use only answers created by the Rwandans, not to give our ideas, but put their own responses. So it was next year, and two years ago, I started preparing a proper survey, but with a professional team of statisticians from a university. And we sent this survey to Rwanda. And I thought that it will be finished, but it came back 3 times. Why? Because they were mentioning, well, this answer is wrong. It should be used in different terms. it should be related with something different, or throw it away, or put something different, and or it should be in different place of whole survey, because this question is too early. It can annoy the people who will be fulfilling the questionnaire. So I wasn't even aware how complicated it could be with working with people of the different culture, but it showed me that it is quite possible. So when we come back, so it was restructured, again, and finally it was sent. It is the one of the examples. Do you think that we can talk about total reconciliation in Rwanda? So, and I prepared only 2 responses. Yes, there is a reconciliation, or no, there is no reconciliation. And what happened? It came back because they, as I mentioned, that they are natural born diplomats. They don't want to showing their real way of thinking at the first place, at the first moment. They would like to describe something, sometimes using metaphor, but not directly answering. And during the researches, so I had to add another response. I believe it's a process that is ongoing. And most of the answers was marked as the C. And afterwards, after all, I realized that really it is true, because this process is still ongoing. How it was 2 years ago at the spring, when we had prepared the right survey. It was restructured 3 times. So we had 3 team leaders, 20 cooperators, students, and lockdown started. So everything, it had to be rebuilt. I couldn't go to Rwanda, but I had those 3 leaders there. And what happened during the lockdown? Well, it wasn't lockdown like we had. Well, in the first moment of the lockdown, it was like a stay at home. But you know, we are in our homes. This is the plane of spending time, meeting with other people, but not in Rwanda, not in Africa. This is the place when you only sleep, and sometimes when you can go hide from the weather, but no for spending hours and days in closet. And the authorities of Rwanda said, you cannot leave your house only for important reason, and you cannot leave your place of living, village, city, department in the city. No, it's impossible, it's forbidden. So those people were almost imprisoned. But what it helped? It helped in this way that also students were sent to their houses. And they were in different places of the country, and they could make this survey with the group with whom they were living. And no matter with the denomination of faith, no matter if they are Christians or no Christians, what do they believe? Because the survey was directed to every one of the Rwandans, they were questioning those people. So I thought that it will go fast. But as we see, in 2020, for half of the year, we've got the 400 questionnaires and it stopped. And I don't know why it cannot go further. So I was thinking that I would have to finish this at this point. And 1 year ago, I really had only 400 questionnaires. But on the spring of a year ago, 2021, it started again. And finally, we got the 1,222, the proper questionnaires, and they were analyzed, and we used them to working on them. Some of the bigger number, sometimes they were coming, and I could even say that. So I could even show how those people, they trying to cheat a little. For instance, once I've got 15 questionnaires that there was only one difference in answers, the age, but the rest was totally the same. But when I found it, the other side wouldn't and had never repeated this. So it shows that it has to be ready for every occasion and everything that it can come. So to the September of last year, I've got the whole number of those surveys, and they had been sent to the process of the counting the results, and it was finished in last month. What were the goals and the hypotheses? Well, to know in which point of reconciliation we are right now. Well, there is a special scale to measure how far a reconciliation is? I think not. But sometimes those people, maybe they will tell something about the reconciliation. So how do they identify with the process of reconciliation? And how they understand the process, what the reconciliation really for them is, and what was the role of the church in this process, because it was also interesting for me, because church, especially Catholic Church in Rwanda, is tolerated but not fully accepted. Why it is? It is also the part of the policy of government, because it's always easy to find a whipping boy. And for instance, the whipping boy for Rwandan authorities became at one moment the France, that they accused the France that they didn't stop they stopped the genocide. I don't believe it was really possible to do what by one of two troops. Of course, it is a part of the policy. It doesn't have to be according to the truth, but it can be like that. So church in Rwanda, it is something about the half of the population, Catholic Church, and runs the half of the schools in the whole Rwanda. So if the authorities of Rwanda decide to throw away the church, so they will stop the schools in Rwanda, indeed. So that's why it's tolerated, but not fully accepted. So it was dedicated to the society of Rwanda. So it took almost 1 year and a half, just the moment of this investigation. We have to adapt our technique to this society because it was the strict time of the strict lockdown. And also, I had to find money for this. In some moments, my university participated in this, and some moment I have to pay from my pocket. So you know how it is. Everything goes. There is no money. And they are telling you, well, send money, Father. We will send you another questionnaires. Yes, of course. Yeah. And especially when you hear that we want to buy, for instance, rice for this money or something like that. So what can you say? And it really became the part of my life. And I wanted to know not only this on the size of the 400 questionnaires, but I wanted to cross the 1,000 to get the fully perspective of this research. So also we organized from my diocese, also from Living Rosary is the Polish name for the group of the Rosary, people who are praying, and they're also supporting missions. And also we made an online crowdfunding. So we also supported those people with the donations for supplies of the food. So the scope was extensive, but we wanted to know, and also we presumed that they have different sources of knowing the genocide. Why? Because 25 years after the genocide, it shows a very unique perspective. Eyewitnesses that are still living, and they have their perspective. But it's also a moment of the breaking, because there is a whole group of new generation who were born after the genocide. They then don't have this experience of their own, but they have some kind of trauma that was passed by those who survived the genocide. It is very deep and complicated, but those researchers also gives a chance of finding the perspective. How do they answer on some questions? And in some occasions, they have different point of view on the same things. So I wanted to catch this unique moment when survivors are living, and there is a new generation who is living in a traumatized society, but they don't have the same experience. So we try to also to describe and to show the sketches, the frame of reconciliation, and how the people of Rwanda, they see this. And I will try to skip some parts of this. What are their opinions, if they have their own, or it is influenced by the hostile groups, or maybe different organizations, or maybe from different countries, or big corporations, I don't know. We wanted to know all of those things, and on which factors the future reconciliation depends indeed. So make story short, how they see the reconciliation in the past, how do they evaluate right now at this moment, and how they see the future of the reconciliation. Those three perspectives I wanted to catch in these researches. When it gone to the team of the statisticians, they used their tools. Well, I'm not strong at this point, so please accept my weakness. But the sample was estimated for 1,067, this number of the questionnaires. So that's why I wanted to cross this number to have more questionnaires and to have really a wide estimation of this survey. So how it was selected? Well, at the first point, we tried to get the permission from the local authorities, and we tried 8 times. And it was according to their very specific culture. Well, Father, you will get it. Okay, I don't have this permission with me. Possibly I left this in my desk, in my bureau, in my office. Why it is like that? Because in their mentality, it is very rude to answer somebody no. And they think that it's much more better if you don't say no, but you will be trying to describe this in different ways. Of course, if you live in this context, you understand this. But it was the 8 attempts to get this. And of course, I had no time for waiting, because those conversations, it took almost 1 year. So researchers have started. They were collected in silence, and still the conversations were ongoing. And after last try, we decided, okay, no. We have to finish on our hand. And So as you know from this conversation from WhatsApp, there is a lot of people who are afraid, especially when to have official work, that they don't want to show them in public their activity like that in this issue. So I couldn't find a special selection group for the for this survey. So we chosen the special groups of nests. So in different parts of the country, there were students that were living. Those questionnaire was made. And of course, we used the contacts with the university students because they knew English. They have contact with the scientific literature, and they know what the questionnaire is, because they had to speak immediately in a direct dialogue with the people, and they also had to sometimes explain what the question is. Sometimes people who were questioned, they were analphabets. So it was also very interesting. The minimum age of person that was questioned, it was 16 years. The oldest was 77. So the range of the age was also quite wide. And I think the 1,300 questionnaires were distributed, but we accepted those 1,222. It was the standardized 90 questionnaire. Of course, there was a pilot test. The main language was English, and with those people who weren't speaking English, it was translated to local language. And of course, sometimes some questions were compiled, and you will see how it works when I present the last thing. Of course, it was said, and how it was get to Poland. It was said through the WhatsApp, the pictures. Every questionnaire, it had 4 pages. So it was making the photos of the pages, and sometimes it was very funny because one of the leaders wasn't so friendly with the techniques. And sometimes when he sent me 20 questionnaires, everything was mixed up. And sometimes without sending any signal, for instance, I was walking somewhere, in a park, and I see, well, there are some messages, and he was sending me right now, just in the moment. So we had to separate 4 pictures with the 1 small sentence to put there in the separate files. So even with people who are not friendly with the technical side, it is possible to using WhatsApp to make the survey like that. I have never known about this. Now I know. And this is the end of this presentation. And at this moment, we have to show another thing because I have multiplied screens. So I will put it like that because this is are the results. And I was thinking, how should I present it to you? And I think that we will be compiling like that we will have a questionnaire on one side, and on the other side, there will be results of those researches, because I have to look at this like that, and because I don't see this on the screen. So this is the questionnaire and the questions. So we can see how many women and men took part in this, and people who were living in the city and the village. So we can see that it's not so strict and very important, but because this is what I mentioned before, sometimes they don't know where do they really live. Another question about the age. So we can see that it is the 4 groups of age. What was the reason to divide them in such a strange sections? Because this is the group of people who were born after the genocide, or they might be were 1 or 2 years old. And of course, there is a psychological question. Is it possible that so small child can be traumatized? I was speaking with a psychologist. I was really teaching, I was reading a lot of literature, and I had not find any right one question, because it is very individual. For some people, it's possible, but for another, it's impossible. And maybe during after the therapeutic work, it's possible to find out if it's really passed by the different people and accepted as my own experiences, or it is my own experience. We all have experiences that we think that they are our own, but we accepted them from the different sources. So it's really hard to find it. And those group, they were small children. So they saw this during the genocide, and they know what happened. They were young adults, but not adults in the legal meaning. And the last one, they've been official adults by the law in the moment of the genocide. So they also they could part in genocide on the one of the sides as victims or as oppressors. So you can see what are the numbers. The youngest were the most willing to take part in this research. The oldest, they weren't very able and willing to take part in this investigation. I asked about the believing in God, and I was really surprised that only one person answered that doesn't believe in God. 30% answered that they didn't answer at all. And I think we can interpret this like this, because they still believe in God, they could survive this. And well, it helped them to walk through this all horrible experiences. At this moment, there is a lot of opinions of the journalists, of the lawyers, of the politicians about the reconciliation in Rwanda and genocide. But it is the first attempt when we are asking normal people, what do they think about this? And really, in Rwandan churches, there is a lot of people. And especially in sanctuaries, there are hundreds of them when they are praying, kneeling, sitting, weeping, prostrating. And you can even feel when you enter the church where are people during the adoration, and you can even touch the atmosphere of presence. So it shows how those people, quite different than after the experience of Shoah, they decided to finding help in relation with God, which is also really interesting and for our conditions quite extraordinary. What those people were doing, it's split, so we'll try to fix it out. What they're doing, they have some kind of official job, entrepreneur, working on farm, working for somebody. All quite a big group in Rwanda is dependent on others because they have no possibility of working, and they are also, and sometimes just like workers in the vineyard in the gospel, sometimes they are waiting for hired job. And sometimes they have, and sometimes they don't have this work. About the past of reconciliation, question 7. So we can see how it is like there. So we can see that the people were selecting not just the one answer, but also they could scale it. How much do they agree with some of those opinions? And they could choose between 5 grades. So the path of reconciliation. How do they see this? It's and especially was a question about how people understand the reconciliation of the nation. Why the nation? Because it was related with the mentality of Rwandans. At the first attempt, at the first moment, try to ask general questions, not direct to the person, but ask general questions. So that's why at the first moment, there are questions about the country. That's something that it doesn't relate to me in direct way. So it is like that. So if you agree, and this is the proposition of my statistician team to joining those 2 grades, fully agree and agree, to show it in the right way. And when we see those propositions, joins attempt or the Christian process, now we can see that the Christian process has the biggest support. And it is not my idea. It was taken from the primary questionnaire. And what was the lowest? So we can see.
Chcę zobaczyć, jak to wygląda, ale
How about the state?
chyba być jakaś rozmowa tutaj.
Proszę wyciszyć. And here on the diagram, and now we try to vary this according to the gender and to the place of living, and how it was. As we can see, there's almost no difference according to, with the variance of people who were living in the place of residence or according to the gender, and how it was related with the age. And the youngest, what they marked, joint attempts by peoples to repair. And quite different, they were answering as the oldest, the eyewitnesses of the genocide. And what about the Christian process leading to mutual forgiveness and healing wounds? At village, it was the strongest, where the relations are the strongest, and sometimes in the villages, oppressors are living next to victims. And it happens there. And sometimes they don't speak for many years with each other. And sometimes they discover the miracle of reconciliation. And it really happens there. And according to age, the biggest support from the youngest, not from the oldest. Of course, there is no so big difference, 10%, but the stronger is the youngest group. Again, with the shriving of social peace, not the youngest, but those who are children. Here, the biggest support in village, etc., etc. So maybe we'll go to the different questions. How important is reconciliation for Rwanda as a country? Again, general. 9 question. Look at this. How important? Very important. So they see the need of this, but sometimes they don't know how to do it. But in personal meeting, they are answering, yes, it is very important. And another question, difficulties about reconciliations, 10th. So we are starting the harder questions. And what are the difficulties? And we have the, what is the B? Continuous scratching of wounds. So we know from our our life. But what is the lowest answer? E, activities of the hostile groups. And in common opinion, sometimes there is said that somebody is treating people or frightening those people and they are not feeling safe. No, they don't see that as a problem of the hostile groups. They see the problem internally in myself, scratching old wounds. Those people who are playing with the banana ball, with the sandals like that you could see, who live in almost primitive conditions, they have very deep wisdom about life. It is really incredible. Sometimes I think we can learn a lot from them. Who contributed to reconciliation in Rwanda? And there were propositions. They could mark as much as they wanted. And another option of this question, who helped the most? It is 11th question. It will be here. Yes. Of course, government. But on the second place, there is a church. What is quite surprising, schools and education centers, and help of a single man. And this is also the structure of respondents, how people were choosing, if they were choosing one answer or more. And what is very interesting, they were choosing mostly one answer. Possibly, they didn't understand the idea of this question. It was too complicated. And it is the most important institutions who help the most, of course. It is the government, but on the second place, what is very interesting, the most people from city decided that is very important help of the church. And schools, much more valued in the villages. And how it is according to age, by the youngest, government, by the oldest, church. This is very interesting. Oldest are the who survived the genocide. And now we are entering to the future of the reconciliation. Who can contribute in the future? And they were supposed to mark two institutions. So how do they choose? Government and church, the number of the respondents, and also they were pointing on schools and education centers. And how it was with the complete reconciliation in the future, we could see that there were differences between city and villages. And there is it is very important. This is this question that I showed you before. There is a reconciliation in Rwanda, and how people were answering. Look at this. Yes, there is reconciliation. There is no. And the most important, the biggest, as we see here on diagram, this ongoing process. So how they were responding according to their age, especially those who weren't lived in the genocide. Of course, the biggest support with the youngest. And here we can speak about the complete reconciliation with the oldest group. Maybe they are the most experienced. Maybe also they are most experienced with the policy of government. I don't know, but it is from this survey. And this is how we can speak about reconciliation according to gender and to place of residence. I think I'm speaking too long. Now it's an hour, so so we can go further. Under what conditions do you think complete reconciliation can occur in the future? And the 15th question. Respecting evangelical love and love of neighbor by all. It is much more supported by men, but not so with a big difference. And much more value in the village. But telling the truth about the history, which is a very important issue in Rwanda, much more supported by men and in the cities. What is very interesting, cooperating by the all institutions is much more valued by a woman. And how is with the age, respect for the evangelical law for all, those who are youth, young adults, tell the truth about the history. The biggest support with the oldest, the survivors. Freedom of expression, also survivors. And cooperative all institutions, survivors. 16th question. What hinders complete reconciliation? And again, lack of justice to all persecutors by a man, pointed by a man, and difficult of understanding of Christian reconciliation. And it is answered in the village. And how it's regarding with the age. Again here, youngest, lack of justice to all persecutors, young adults and survivors. 17th question. Who can help the most in the future? Also, what if we can help in the process? Without, I don't want to splitting this. It's 17th. Yes, it's 17, okay. Faith in God and doing works of mercy. And how it's shown, supported almost equally by a man, a woman, and village and the cities. And love and understanding of other people. This is very interesting because especially in the village, it has much more bigger support than in the cities. Forgiveness for all people. Almost the same and also almost the same. And how people were matching, who were matching one or two factors. And again, most of people, they were thinking that it's possible to match only one factor, not two factors, and quite a lot of without factors, without matching anything. What is the most important? Forgiveness to others and accepting the history of Rwanda. And last two questions. What do you think? And those direct questions, they are in the last moment of the survey. Why? Because, as I mentioned before, they don't want to be indicated for the personal answer in the beginning. They wanted to trust, and then at the least maybe they will answer. And the active role of a state, okay, it's here, is most supported by a man in the villages. But what is interesting, in the cities, the church activities is much more supported and also by a woman. And how is with regarding to the age, we can see that by the youngest and those who are children and young adults is almost equal. And the last question, what is the more important for you? reconciliation in your life, in social life, both equally important. And most of them, they're marked, both are equally important, and no matter where they live and what gender is. Here in diagram, it's much more clear. And according with the age, we can see that is the strongest support is amongst them who were young adults during the genocide. And this is all my presentation. I apologize because I was speaking too long.
No apology necessary. Thank you, Father Dawid. That was fascinating. We can take about 20 minutes or so for questions or observations from people. If I could ask you to just please identify yourself and speak as clearly as you can, because these things tend to make it difficult to understand. So use your outside voice, please. Questions for Father Dawid?
Good afternoon, Father. My name is Joshua Orsi. I'm a graduate student here. I was in Dr. Kowalski's moral theology last semester. And I wanted to inquire. See, I converted to Catholicism when I was 18, 19 years old. And in the churches in which I grew up were non-denominational Protestant churches, and normally missionary activity was carried out by usually husband and wife teams, often with children, whom the church would sponsor to go down the country and spread the gospel. And so I was rather, surprised this was not, I guess I didn't really think much about it, but this is not the model, to my understanding, of Catholic missionary work and evangelization. And I was wondering if you could throw some light on how the Catholic Church specifically has carried out evangelization in Rwanda and Central Africa.
The real missions in contemporary, our point of view, in Africa started in the second half of the 19th century. And of course, they were supported by some religious orders, and some of them, they were established, especially for evangelizing Africa, like Combanians. It was by the Italian bishop Dani Comboni established. And there were even some orders like White Brothers who were established only for missions in Africa. And they didn't accept any vocations to their order, but they were preparing just for the local dioceses, very specific kind of the starting missions. And for instance, in Butare, in Rwanda, they established one of the first bishopal sees. They prepared well-worked mission with big church, with schools, with workshops to help the people be self-sufficient. And then they moved in different places. And it was some kind of the special movement in the last years of the 19th century to evangelizing the Africa, but under the Sahara, sub-Saharan Africa. And they were moving from the north to the south. But also we have to remember that it was still time when missions were follow the colonials authorities, which is also overshadowing now the idea of missions, because those people are still remembering this humiliation that they were the citizens of the second class. And how it was in Rwanda, it started in 1900. And after 2 years, there was baptized first group. And it really worked very well. Even some missiologists, they were saying that it is the best example of missions, because the pastoral working with the vocations, schools, new baptisms, it was really working very well. But during this time, this 100 years, this 1 century, it was a little problematic because the colonial country was changed, was shifting. Like sometimes it was Belgium, sometimes it was Germany, again Belgium. This year in July, it will be the 60th anniversary of getting independence of Rwanda from Belgium. And we have to also say from the church side that we weren't aware about this, what is happening inside of society of Rwanda, because those people were praying together in the same church, and when genocide started, they were behaving like not being a Christians and not Catholics at all. It was really hard and horrible. So it shows that this evangelization indeed wasn't so deep as it should be. In the crisis moment, the belonging to tribe was much more stronger than belonging to the church. There are some horrible examples, and the estimations are different. Some Rwandan priests, because there's also a big issue if the priests were supporting genocide. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's fascinating. I sent you contact information actually for one of the graduates from our program here who wrote his dissertation on the role of the Catholic Church in Rwanda and more broadly some of the conditions for the genocide there. He continues to do a lot of work on the Great Lakes region in Africa. I have a question for you. You know, the data that you showed that probably the single largest issue contributing, or that your respondents think will contribute to reconciliation, was telling the truth about history. And you remarked that you also learned from your own experience in Poland how important telling the truth is about history, and how maybe in Poland there should have been more of a focus on dealing with the past instead of just moving ahead. So I wonder, in Rwanda, what are the disputed or the problematic questions about the history there that you think people feel needs to be dealt with more honestly?
Would you like to answer about the Rwanda or maybe about Poland?
Maybe Rwanda. You know, let's leave Poland out of this.
Okay.
But I guess the question is, what did you specifically learn about the importance of history in Rwanda?
Those people are really aware that there is no reconciliation without telling the truth. And it is a little problematic in Rwanda because there is a one-side narration. And this is what I'm saying now, it's political incorrect. Because in every place you are made to tell that there was a genocide where Hutu were killing Tutsi. But after stopping this horrible moment, it started in a different way. Troops from Uganda, from Congo, from Burundi, because Hutu and Tutsi, they don't live only in Rwanda. They came to Rwanda and they vengeance. For instance, in Kibeho, there is a basilic now of Our Lady. There was a refugee camp for 30,000 people. And there is, at this moment, in the books, it is written that it was eliminated. Nothing else. And especially people from Hutu tribe, they still live in big humiliation. They are accepting this as themselves, that they still cannot say truth, fully truth. And there is a big problem that in the future, it can come back in different way. There was a channel on YouTube of Kizito Mihingo, a Rwandan singer, who was imprisoned for singing in public, "Why cannot mourn for those who were died from my family?" He was imprisoned just for this one sentence. And last year, he hanged himself in prison without any witnesses. He was from the Hutu tribe, of course.
This ties to the question I have, which is the role of shame in reconciliation. So, what do you find among the people in Rwanda as sort of how are they dealing with the reality of shame? You see in post-Nazi Germany a tremendous self-consciousness of the evil that they're capable of agreeing with. And so I'm just wondering, I think it ties in a little bit to this. Shame is kind of resisting reconciliation and resisting truth.
It is very individually. Because sometimes, and I think mostly it comes from outside. Because they know, and I see the same in Poland, that it happened and they done something terrible. Because, for instance, why the most of the women survived? Because they weren't killed. They were mostly raped. So there is quite a situation like that when oppressors, when they live, and all of them, they are treating like that, they are trying to behave like normal, like nothing happened. And especially the victims, when they try to meet with the oppressor, it's quite problematic because there is a lot of complex trauma. But I think it's quite similar to sexual abusing. That you have the complex of the victim. Yes, I think that there is something like that. And it is on the both sides. And some of those people, especially it is in the personal testimonies, they are realizing that there is something strange happening with me. Why I am crying all the time, all nights, all days? What is happening to me? I cannot live normally. What is wrong with me? For instance, there was one story like that. Oh, I cannot finish the Lord's Prayer about the forgiving to our oppressors. I cannot. Everything stops. Why? And this lady, she went to the sanctuary of Divine Mercy, spent there a few weeks, all the time in the church. And she was crying and asking God, please help me. I don't want to live like that anymore. And in one moment it came. Well, in her situation, in her case, prayer helped. But also there is a movement of Foyer de Charité that was established by Martha Robin. And they helped 12,000 people in Rwanda with the trauma of reconciliation. And their charisma of Foyer de Charité is to help traumatized people to come back to real life. So there is a shame on two sides. People are trying to live somehow until the moment when they are hitting the wall. I don't know if I describe it well. When they are standing in one point and saying, no, I have no power to live like that, really. I'm done and finished. God help me. Or sometimes they are doing something worse. There's one thing that I discovered, and I forgot to mention about this, and it shows also the wisdom of this society. When there is a question about the future reconciliation, there is a bigger support who can help: government, church, schools, but there is also answer about the NGOs, organizations, and etc. And only 10% is supporting this answer. So it shows that this help that we from the Western world, we are sending to them, and we're thinking that we are helping them, and no matter how big size, for them, of course, it is important, but because they can buy food, school, everything to school, but they are also very aware about this, that they have to fix the problem in their society inside. And it also shows me that they are much more poorer than we are, but in life wisdom, sometimes they are much more smarter than we.
Please join me in thanking Father Selma for his presentation to us today. Very simple refreshments of cookies and punch if anyone would like to stay. There's also some publications from Father's that we did theology on the back table if you'd like to look at those. You're welcome to stay and chat a bit longer. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you,
It's
sister.
very courageous to be your first presentation
Yes.
in English right after you submitted it. So thanks very much for
Thank you
sharing
very
with
much,
us.
sister. From which order are you, sister?
Oh, I'm a sister of life.
Sister of life?
Yeah, sister of life. So we're American Canadian. We're about 30 years old. So fairly new face.
Very fresh. Possibly the founder is living.
Our founder isn't, but our founder superior is. But we do take, some of my sisters take college women over to Poland every year.
Oh.
Yeah, twice a year before the pandemic, and then this, so much spiritual fruit in Poland. So we think this way, right?
Yes, it is still present, but also, well, we also see that vocations, degrees.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Well,
We have to do something with them. You believe that God will help us.
the Holy Spirit, I know, it's everywhere. People are drinking and poison. So, all right, so Father, thanks very
Thank you
much.
very much. And what are you studying?
Theology. I'm studying theology, yeah.
From which part of country are you?
Well, I am from New York.
Not so far.
No, not too far, yeah.
According to the size of America.
No, right, no, relatively close. What part of Poland are you from? Oh, you're actually, so that's your diocese, your
Yes,
university, everything.
Yes, diocese in the university. Well, it's my bag from my university. Adam Mickiewicz
Yeah,
University.
I know, I saw it on your presentation. I figured that out. Oh, that's great. Well, thanks so much, Father.
Thank you very much.
And are you here long?
Tomorrow I'm flying to Israel.
Really?
Yeah, because in Poland I'm also working with American soldiers. You know the situation in Europe. We have foreign operations services in Poland. And it is spread on 8 countries, from Estonia to Romania. So I'm Russian. And the headquarters is in Poland. And each Sunday, I'm fasting and celebrating all this.
Great. And so what's in prison?
One of the soldiers is living there, and I was in prison, right?
That's great.
And invited me to visit.
Oh, I'm so happy you get to do that. That's really good. Oh,
And he's going to come back to Poland.
Poznań.
Oh, good, that's really nice.
Another conference.
Oh, good, okay, so that's nice.
It's also for me, I faced it with something that I have never met before. Faculties that are coming to the picture.
Thank God.
They say something about political situation.
Soldiers and stuff like that. And I had very two interesting experiences. Once, at the specialization, coming to the
I think the president.
chapel, and in front of the chapel, two guys are waiting.
Invaded.
And why were they waiting?
That's awesome.
It was the first time when I see
Yeah,
that.
so they still have.
One, I have never seen before, and again, another one, the one who twice came back again. And one of them said, something has wakened me up the street
Very colorful, so it's drinks.
and told me not to be happy.
Really? The Scorpion Age. Wow, that's awesome.
And another story. I prepared everything for mass, and I was walking through the corridor. And I had a rosary praying, there's no one waiting for confession. And there's the one guy with the sketching book. Something was drawing. Oh, are you the priest? Yes, there is a priest. There is a mass. Yes. Well, I've come here again. Okay. Where is the mass? Well, in the power hour. Okay. And 5 minutes.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And I'm going to that.
You know, the Lord's at work. There's so much crazy stuff. I think it's gotten so crazy that some people are like, wow, there's only, you can't live in a middle ground.
It's supposed to, and for me, those who was going to the church. They are the really good testimonials. Really.
I believe it.
Every Sunday, there is one or two people who are going to the confession. They are really good.
That's so hard for me. It's amazing. Wow, you're doing great stuff. Well, enjoy your time in Pittsburgh. And thank you for this beautiful presentation. Yeah, it's really very thought-provoking. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm Sister Gabriel. Yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
God bless.
God bless
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you very much.